we are in what I've been in the last several days since our last meeting, nothing to do with that particular point, taking in the impact of how I'm treating this really commentary, taking the impact of this commentary on Tsongkhapa's layout of the autonomy school. The main commentary is Jigme Tamshik Gyatso. And he gives these short, quite often short additions, and then he explodes with lengthy expansions. And I put in his lengthy expansion, which is one of the things he's doing is alerting us to an exposition on a topic that Tsongkhapa must have been aware of, but totally ignored. Totally ignored. That is counter to what Tsongkhapa put in the essence of eloquence, and is quite interesting because, for instance, it is an exposition by Atisha. And Atisha is so important to Tsongkhapa. But so we can presume, Jigme Tamshik Gyatso, I say, presume that Tsongkhapa knew about it and chose to ignore it. And as one of our translators, Jongbok Yi, said about the way Tsongkhapa treats his sources, he's like an emperor who just, he's like regal, and he says, I'm not going to tell you about this, I'm not going to tell you about that, I'm going to give you what I decided. Quite often. And then at other times, he tells you most succinctly what some other person said, and I'm going to give you my opinion on it. And he goes into, as His Holiness has said, very difficult topics. He picks very difficult topics, and he gives you this side, that side, and weaves your way through it. Again, as we could take Jongbok's opinion, like the great emperor or king, and tells you how you should look at it. And it's great. You have a supreme scholar and tells you, in one way, how you might want to look at it, if you put it that way. But in other places, he just ignores one of his own famous sources. And then in other places, for instance, when he comes to talking about Bhāvaviveka's tenet about self-cognition, he doesn't even tell you why he's saying, his sources for saying Bhāvaviveka does not accept self-cognition. He just says Bhāvaviveka does not accept self-cognition. That's all he says. He says nothing. He doesn't even give you any sources within Bhāvaviveka. So Jigme Tamshik Gyatso wisely, like many other Gelugpa scholars, lays out sources. And it's wonderful to see even the mess that then people like us have to deal with. The mess, or just get it revealed. Don Lopez's translation of the Autonomy School chapter, this being Jang-kya's presentation, is Jang-kya's presentation is particularly smooth and takes you through it. And I fortunately, really, didn't remember that this is in Lopez's thesis, that chapter, and had to struggle through it myself, which is good, because at this stage of my life I'm being super literal, and it was nice that I had to fight through these difficult passages myself, really, again. And Jang-kya has his own commentary. It's a wonderful commentary. So eventually I got out Lopez's thesis and his book that he kindly gave me a copy of, his new book. And so, it's all right there. Oh, a lot of it's right there. And then Jig-me Tamshik-gyatso, of course, has his own riff. Some of it I can see is from Jang-kya, some of it isn't. And having gone through all of it, and my approach to doing my translation was to put in all of Ngawang Belden's notes to Giant Sheba's presentation. Number one, to fill in all of Giant Sheba's Tibetan that I had deliberately ignored when producing my book called Maps, because I was doing an easy access version of Giant Sheba's presentation, put in the Tibetan, and then put in all of the Tibetan of Ngawang Belden's notes, because I wanted everything before me if I was going to do a complete job on translating Tsongkhapa's text with commentary. Include whatever I thought would be helpful. And therefore, I put in Ngawang Belden's annotations, which in fact I had already translated for Maps. It's already in Maps. But I didn't use that as, I thought, oh, this is the clearest presentation and the easiest to read presentation on Bhāvaviveka's opinion that I've ever seen. And that's why we began reading Ngawang Belden's opinion. And if you didn't want to read anything else and didn't want to suffer through Bhāvaviveka's stanzas, and in fact, if you get tired of reading his, you can you can forget about the rest of what I put into Tsongkhapa's text from Jig-me Tamshik-gyatso and say, I've gotten enough, really. I've gotten enough by reading Ngawang Belden. And I'm not going to suffer anymore. You can also get out Lopez's book, and I believe I sent you his thesis, which what he put in his book is pretty much the same. But it can help to suffer through, these pungent, brief stanzas from Bhāvaviveka can also give you a hint about what Bhāvaviveka is like. And that's part of what Jigme Tamsha Gyatso is doing, filling in what, just to repeat, what Tsongkhapa was reading, and he didn't let us know about. And probably he thought, why weight my readers down with all of that stuff, right? Yeah. And he wanted to tell us what the tenet is. And an odd thing that I realized this morning is that when Kön-chog-jig-me-wang-po talks about the three proficients, which includes Jnanagarbha and he really says something wrong about Jnanagarbha. He says Jnanagarbha agrees with Shantarakshita and Kamalashila on these points. And he's just plain wrong. So anyway, we're going to come to that. Jnanagarbha is a teacher, and he might be the main teacher, of Shantarakshita. Shantarakshita, for sure, is the main teacher of Kamalashila. That's the connection. Thus, the three proficients about autonomy in Tibetan, Rangyu, Sharsum, the three Eastern Proficients are hooked up by who's the teacher of whom. Jnanagarbha is the teacher, but all these people have multiple teachers. I can't think of anybody who didn't have many. Tsongkhapa had a huge number of teachers from, we can't say all the schools of Tibetan Buddhism. All would mean at least 8, but you'd have to look into it. I can't say he didn't have from all 8, but even probably more than 8. So Jnanagarbha, a teacher of Shantarakshita, and Shantarakshita, the main teacher of Kamalashila. Kamalashita Shila, writing a huge commentary on one of Shantarakshita's huge texts. So that's how. And then Shantarakshita bringing Kamalashila to Tibet. I don't know in what manner he brought him. Did Shantarakshita arrive first and he called Kamalashila to Tibet? Or, I don't know enough of the history. Now, it's clear, as Lopez says, in his, this being one of the things I did this morning, Lopez and Buswell, but certainly Lopez wrote the entries on Bhāvaviveka. I don't know about Jnanagarbha, but Shantarakshita and Kamalashila, this huge. The Princeton Dictionary of Buddhism. Now, it's called Princeton because it's published by Princeton. Now, without looking into it, I'm sure that Princeton didn't begin it. It was Boswell and Lopez. Now, probably Boswell's name is first and Lopez second by alphabet. The two of them, are both great scholars. They probably were at a conference or something somewhere. And they sat down and said, we need an updated dictionary of Buddhism. So you see, on the Three Proficients, I don't know if they translate Rangyushasum. I was trying to see, is there a source on all three of them being from East India? For someone got criticized for taking it as the three who illuminate the autonomy school. Somebody got criticized for that royally by who's the fellow from Harvard. Anyway, so short of getting out his criticism of that person, I thought, well, look it up in there. And Lopez wrote, there's a traditional source for Shantarakshita, that he was born in, traditional he called it, in Zahor in Bengal. But you see, he probably wrote the other two for, or at least one of them, Kamalashila. He didn't give a birthplace. But if, I'm just kind of guessing, if Shantarakshita we know but from traditional sources. You see, traditional means them Buddhists. So them Westerners aren't traditional. You see, I've criticized that term. We Westerners don't have traditions, and even our scholarship is not traditional. But you see, what are you going to call them? Some easy term, like Westerners, is such a terrible term. What are you going to do if you're from Australia? Are you a Westerner? What are you going to do if you're from Africa and you're in this tradition? Are you going to be a Westerner? If you're from South America, are you a Westerner? It's a terrible term, Westerner. And even Westerner, what are you west of? Genghis Khan, who's going to come kill you? Them people from the East. I go west when I go to Asia. What?
What is a better term? I've been struggling with it. Because usually it's Inji, which means people from Britain.
Yeah. And all the people who are offended by being called English.
But what's a better term? I
haven't got one. So you see, I go Westerners.
Is the main thing being referred to an academic tradition with the philosophical background of the European Enlightenment? Is that really what we're getting at?
Yeah.
So why don't we just call the Enlightenment tradition or something? The European Enlightenment tradition.
You quickly modified it. That's good. European Enlightenment tradition. That might work. I wonder if it does. And the Eastern Enlightenment tradition? But it would be Eastern. The Buddhist Enlightenment? So what are you going to do if you're a Taoist? What are we going to come up with? The fake Enlightenment, the wrong Enlightenment tradition. But you're getting there. You're getting there. European Enlightenment tradition. Well, yeah, right. And so the medical tradition is going to be the European. Okay, we'll stop. But you've gotten us going on something, so we'll stop there. Anyway, why are we off on this? I forget what this is stemming from. Okay, Lopez and Shantarakshita, being from, we know from Tibetan or Indian tradition, was born in Zahor in Bengal, probably Indian, not just Tibetan. Not just Tibetan. Anyway, so there's maybe some sense that his prime student was from the same area, and maybe some sense that his teacher was from the same area. Maybe. Like, and even if he went to, he did go to His Holiness's favorite thing, where?
Nalanda.
Nalanda. Where is Nalanda? It's in, where in India?
Bihar.
Bihar? Did you Bihar? Even if Bihar is in central?
North
Where?
Central.
North Central. Even there, usually I've thought this out too much. He probably would have stayed with local people. Just like in Tibet, you stay, if you're from Kham in a certain area, you end up staying with a teacher. But anyway, I've thought it out too much. So anyway, Shantarakshita's teacher was Ganagarbha. And it's it's possible that he was born in Bengal also. But anyway, the tradition is that all three of them are from Eastern India. And there's no reason, once it's not known where the other two were born from, there's no reason not to accept the tradition. What else would you follow?
Actually, Bihar today is very close to Bangladesh. It's not far away. Maybe.
All right.
Obviously, to another country.
Cool. And my own teacher who really opened up the study of Buddhist philosophy, tenets, and so forth, his version, which is the one that the guy from Harvard criticized so bitterly, apparently, or made us feel ashamed, was that Shar here, he didn't say anything about East. He said it illuminates autonomy. So actually, I guess I'll have to ask my friend who was criticized so bitterly. Actually, he heard it from me, and I heard it from my famous teacher, who was a repository for all sorts of things that he heard from others, but also some that he made up. And he was a good source for making up things too. Okay, so that was something I was pursuing this morning. Then, oh my God, is it time to quit? So,
Talk a little bit more.
a little bit more, yes, no question. So, we're back to Nobel then, and we read the first paragraph, and so now it's so clear. As one Tibetan, Gesang Yeshe, who's from Losaling, and a young, very well-known scholar from Losaling, who's married to Kim Yeshe, who's the head of
Columns.
what?
Kim Yeshe's husband, wasn't he one of the columns?
Well, he may be now. You know, of that great center down near the nunnery in Lower Dharamsala. Norbalinga.
Yeah. Yeah, that's Kim's project.
Yeah. Her husband. And he got a master's degree at Virginia. And he complained about the Mongolian writings in Tibetan, that they were too clear. That was his joke. Gesang Yeshe is great. So, the Master Bhāvaviveka, are you with me? Finally? Long prelude. It's wonderful. Writings in Tibetan should be a bit unclear. Gesang is wonderful. Anyway, the master. So he was teaching Tibetan while he was teaching. He was a section leader, I believe. The Master Bhāvaviveka responds that this is not logically feasible. So the example is the crystal. The exemplified is the consciousness. Don't fit together. There's something wrong between the example and the exemplified. So you got a crystal. So, you know, if we're going to do this, we should have a crystal. Kathy Rogers brought back a big crystal for me. And I sort of offhandedly, when she gave it to me, I just sort of went like, and set it aside. It was a big crystal. If you ever come to Uma, I'll show it to you. Or maybe I should show it to you when I'm at Uma. Bring it. You'll be amazed at how big it is. I just went, as if it was a piece of garbage you found somewhere. And she and her husband have a jewelry shop. Had a shop. Now they're doing it all out of the web. when a crystal meets with blue, and I'm translating it literally, you know, the other word would be encounters blue. So, you know, so you put blue under it, right? Blue cloth or paper. The vivid blue appearance is a reflection. How do you think? What does reflection mean? Suknyen in Tibetan, suknyen. Reflection. What is reflection? It's the same word used for a mirror. When you think about it, what's a reflection in a mirror? What does reflection mean? It really causes you to think. What does it mean? Not an aspect of the crystal. You see, what does it mean for, you know, does the crystal change? You know, a film changes, right? You got a film, and the film actually changes. The crystal, I mean, okay, we'll stop talking about it. Not an aspect of the crystal. So you see, aspect can't be translated as, what's the word so frequent people want to do? But anyway. Whereas...
Representation.
Representation. You know, the crystal doesn't crackle and, you know, something like that. And then the crystal won't be there anymore. You know, when the blue goes away, the crystal isn't there, you know? It doesn't crackle and become blue when the blue thing is taken away and you have, the crystal isn't blue. This weird word, yeah, okay, anyway, you can get a sense of aspect. Whereas the crystal has aspects. It's, well, I don't know. It's pellucid. I want to ask, is pellucid an aspect of the crystal? Is that how the word aspect is used? Clear, pellucid, etc. Whereas a consciousness generated like the aspect of an object is a consciousness, right? Well, anyway, I won't ask you to nod your head and say right. Whereby the example and the exemplified do not accord. Well, okay, not okay. You get, I hope you get a sense of his point. Then, when the crystal is separated from the blue, okay, we pull out the cloth or we pull out the paper. The crystal, no question about what the word it means, appears pellucid. As I said last time, pellucid's a different word for clear. In Tibetan, tawa, or dawa, depending on even what part of Lhasa you're from. Never mind what province you're from in Tibet. In clear, sawa. In Tibetan, sawa. And when a consciousness is separated, but when a consciousness is separated from objects, there's nothing. There's no consciousness. I happen not to agree with that. But that's Bhāvaviveka's opinion, okay? But you could say, when a consciousness is separated, but it says from objects. It doesn't say when a consciousness is separated from that object, from the blue, there's nothing there. He could have said that. When a consciousness is separated from blue, it knows something else. Okay? That's his point. But when a consciousness is separated from all objects, there's no consciousness. I happen to disagree. If you can separate your consciousness from all objects, it's just consciousness there. I happen to disagree with Bhāvaviveka, the great Bhāvaviveka, the superlogician.
How can you have a consciousness without
Huh?
an object?
Excuse
How
me?
can you have a without an object?
How could you have a consciousness
Without an object.
without an object? Okay, Bhāvaviveka. You got it. You got Bhāvaviveka's point. As Ketan Sambo said, you're pathetic. You, Bhāvaviveka, Shantideva, Chandrakirti, you who uphold dependent arising, where there's a consciousness, there's an object. Consciousness and object arise dependently. I dug out your quote the other day. Yeah? And that's why this section in this text is going to be, well, I wondered how long to make this section. Should I give you your quote from the, so that I couldn't have my day, that you would feel supported by the even greater Gelugpa scholars, that I wouldn't be forced into the Nyingma camp. This is my drivel. And then I'll be forced to find the section where Ngao Belden delineates what Shantideva and Chandrakirti are really saying about self-consciousness, that's so much like mind only and Shantarakshita and Kamala Shila, but doesn't quite say consciousness knows itself by itself. But it's so close to that. You're saying, oh, the consequentialists are just being nitpicky. And they really do accept self-cognition. But I'll have to dig that out so that I'll still have one leg to stand on. Yeah. What does it mean to be conscious if you're not conscious of something? Well, you're conscious of consciousness, but not conscious of consciousness by itself. But that's pretty hard. I wouldn't even know how to hold it. But I need some help from Belden.
They talk so much about like developing Shine in relationship to the conventional nature of the mind.
Yes, exactly.
Way of explaining that.
she's coming to my defense today. You see what happens when you make friends and apologize? Yes, and they'll say things when you're meditating to watch your mind with a corner of your mind. Yeah,
Exactly.
you see?
Right.
Yes, got little tricky ways of working, little ways. And then they'll use metaphors like water poured in water. Those Gelupas, they're tricky. You see, what I say is, watch how they refute and then rescue it back. And then watch the Nyingmas, how they refute and rescue it back. Also. But then, so both ways, watch how they refute and then somewhere along the way, rescue it back. So don't become too enamored of, and then think, oh, I can't watch my own mind. It's all jiggy-jaggy one moment after, as if it goes, and you make yourself nervous. But then they say, well, they'll say, Gelupas will say also, to do it with a corner of your mind. But then they'll say, they'll say, make sure not to introspect all of the time because you'll get too nervous. That every now and then look in and see, am I still on the object? They'll say that also. And then also, they'll say things like, oh, it's so, they used to say, they no longer say it because us, what do you say, non-Tibetans, we talk about having compassion for yourself. They used to say, that's so ridiculous, these people. They're so selfish, so concerned about themselves. But then they'll say, don't be too hard on yourself. And they'll laugh at us for that. Or they'll laugh at their own students. But then they'll also have a lot of compassion for their own students and say, no, you're being too hard on yourself. All of us have those tendencies. So, you've got to have, I won't get into that.
Hey, Jeffrey, can I ask a question here?
Yes.
So I'm wondering if, I don't know if this relates at all, but I know that Elizabeth Napper has Sakya teachings, and I'm wondering if this is part of the reason why. Do they have some solutions for this? You were just presenting about the mind within the mind.
I don't know. Maybe it's not to, well, I won't speculate. There is a general saying, which His Holiness brought up at one point. If you want there's a general saying in Tibet, if you want an explanation, ask Gelupas. If you want practice, ask Gagyu. What do you ask for from Sakyas? I don't know. I forget, I was there in the Cambridge Centre in London.
The experience, because they talk about it.
Oh.
From the point of the practitioner.
And then what do you get from Nyingmas?
The result.
Yeah, it should be, but is that in this fourfold. And the Gelugpas in the crowd were. That's not enough. That's not enough. I don't just want an explanation. So Kejun Sambo, this Nyingma Lama, he was amazed that I took Gelugpa explanations in an experiential way. He said it to my face. Meaning he couldn't do that. So he studied at Debung for a while. So anyway, when the crystal is nothing left over, that's what it means, nothing left over. That is a pellucid and clear entity. And thank you, Kimball. This is, we have to, in Gelug, you have to meditate on the pellucid and clear entity of the mind. And you shouldn't, that's good to do in Gelug, but you shouldn't mistake that for final reality. It's good to do in Gelug. It said, but in Gelug says you shouldn't mistake that for final reality. Since a consciousness devoid of the aspect of an object of knowledge, that means devoid of the aspect of an object, aspect, troublesome word, devoid of an object, does not occur. Poor, pathetic Bhāvaviveka. Poor, pathetic you. I'm not talking to the abbot. You, I'm sorry. In order to make my point, I have to make sure my finger's in the picture. I'm pretending to give you a hard time. But there's a point here too. What are you conscious of? The clear knowing nature of your mind. I should be an imperious lama at this point. I'm Jambel, what's my name? Jambel, no, I'm Nenden Jambel Sharpa. Rebirth of a great helper of the Dalai Lama, of the second Dalai Lama. What a joke. I'm such a pathetic human being. If I am, it shows you what a mess you can be, as I've often said. I may have had a few experiences in this lifetime, but I'm also a jerk. Yes. All right. So, all of this is going to say this. All of it, everything. But the beautiful thing here, look at what Tsongkhapa says with these notes from Geshe Rabten are so helpful. Sergei Geshe, who at the time I was studying with him was giving instructions. He was living way up on top of, way up above where I was staying, which was above McLeodganj. And he was giving instructions to meditators up above him. They would come down sometimes when he was instructing me in his one pole mud floor, of course not muddy, hut. And so some of these are from him and others, as noted, from Seshul Geshe, another Sergei. Even in terms of a single consciousness, there are two consciousnesses within it. That kind of makes you think about, what does two consciousnesses mean? Two consciousnesses within a single consciousness. Now makes this clear that this is what Tsongkhapa is talking about. Now up above, Benden Chökyi was talking about two parts within a single consciousness. Down here, the Sarache scholars are making it clear that what's being talked about, that within a single consciousness there's a direct perception, apprehending blue, and a self-cognition, which is indeed a consciousness, making it clear self-cognition is a consciousness. So within a single consciousness are two consciousnesses. Now you might want to think, well, if there's two consciousnesses, they have to be separate entities. No. But if you hold up two fingers, these are separate entities, even if they're joined somehow through my chest. But when you begin talking like this, two fingers, okay, blah, blah. By appearing as the aspect of an external object, okay. And then another one that's not appearing in that aspect, the aspect of an external object. It's got its own thing, the self-cognition. And then this one's got its own thing, appearing as an external object. External? As in the aspect of external object. Yeah, it's, if you're saying there are no external object, it looks like an external object, right? Looks like one. And then you have something experiencing it, the apprehender. In Tibetan it's called the dzinam, that which has the aspect of the apprehender. And we get a little note from Geshe Rabten as only internal consciousnesses. And that's two, Tsongkhapa says two, and Geshe Rabten says consciousness, in case you don't get the point, which I think we wouldn't get, consciousnesses in a single substantial entity. Substantial doesn't mean something like brain, but it's got its own thing, so it's one substantial entity. Perceiving itself and perceiving, well, what does, in Tibetan the word is nang. Does it mean perceiving or does it mean appearing? And that's our last thing for today. Does it mean perceiving? Does it mean appearing? Well, it has this double sense. And therefore, like the great Canadian scholar who used hyphens, but this is one word, nang, perceiving, appearing as an object, perceiving itself, and perceiving, appearing as an object. Whereby, okay, I just wanted to explain this hyphenated. It's not two words. It's one word, noun, as an object. Whereby that occurs. And so, when you look at that and slow it down, it's saying this says something the same, the two parts that Ngawang Belden's talking about. Right? The two parts. And we have two consciousnesses within a single consciousness. Within. All right. And I've appreciated the comments that have been received, and it also was nice to know that someone read Reflections on Reality. Don't know as I've ever received a comment on that book. And it was nice to know that someone has someone appreciated that book. I appreciate it. I like to read it. Not that I read it every day, but I found that as I was teaching this over this material on Mind Only over 20 years, really, there was some material that hung together as one book, and then there was other material that like came together under specific, like almost isolated topics. So what is it, 100 and whatever issues in Mind Only Buddhism, that if they were separated out in a particular text. And really, when dealing with that absorption in mind only, absorption in no external world, even when I read it, I have to make sure when I get tired to begin to get tired, to stop reading it. Otherwise you could throw up. I mean, your mind to just get too closed down and you won't want to read it. There's a certain style of meditation where you leave the cushion while it's still going well. And if you meditate at Tassajara or at the Zen Center in San Francisco, it's pretty much that you keep meditating through getting sick of it, wanting to throw up, etc., and hope that there's some way you revivify within it. I don't recommend that with these books. Think it's going really well, and it's been going well for a little while, so leave it off at that point. Even I am enticed to keep going. And let me tell you, it gets sickening after a while. Because the brain, or whatever body mechanism that the mind uses, it can't take it anymore. And when you debate, right? If you watch, people zone out. And usually, my experience was, other people recognize this person has zoned out and they don't bear in on that person. They just, he's out. He's out. And they let the person recharge, right? It's like zone out, dog time. And then the person, it's like the computer or the battery recharge. And then when the person is recharged, he's back. Anyway. Okay. See you around. I'm going to go recharge.
Thank you, Jeffrey.
Bye.